After implementing more or less final textures, you'll still see certain errors upon which you can improve. So once again, like in the previous video, go up the pipeline and fix the skinning / pivot point problems that might have arisen. Now with this animation pass, we have the chance to add up-down frames, increasing our key poses from 4 to 8. In those up-down frames, you're able to take care of the feet sliding through the floor by using the curve editor. Let me quickly show you this. Let's go over the difference between the first and the second pass of the walk cycles. So in the first pass, we can see that we have 36 frames, 4 keyframes, or poses, whatever you want to call it. Essentially, this style is called pose-to-pose animation. On frame 0, we start off in the pass position. Then on frame 9, we get into the contact. Then the middle, is the 18th in this case, is again the pass, then the contact B, and pass. If you play it, you can see that the feet are sliding through the ground. The character doesn't feel grounded, feels very airy. It looks better when you look down on the character, 3/4 view, and we usually do, so that already affects how the player or the viewer is going to perceive this cycle, this animation. But we haven't played around with the curves or anything. The goal of the first pass is to establish those frames, those poses as soon as possible. In the second pass, we see that the character goes through the up and the down positions as well, the contact and the pass. So instead of having 4 frames, we'll have 8 frames. 8 unique frames, but 9 frames because it's a cycle. Let's break down this walk cycle and I'll show you how it differs from that orthodox plan that we have established earlier. The character starts off in the pass, then goes into his contact, then the pass again, which is the middle frame, the contact, and the pass. Note that I have extended the frame count to 48 from 36. But now let's take a look what's in the middle of the pass and the contact. In this example, my pass basically plays the role as the up, and the contact is the down, and the frames in the middle serve as in-betweens and almost like adjustment layers, adjustment keys, in which I can go in and pay closer attention to the sliding of the feet through the ground plane. So in this example, I have my pass. This is my pass B, and pass B is followed by a down. The down pose in this example isn't pushed too far, just because I realized while playing around with this character that there's certain limitations of the rig and the shapes, meaning that I couldn't really push the character down too much without having his feet completely slide through the floor. Also, because I'm using the forward kinematics rigging method, I have to pay close attention to prevent the feet from sliding into the ground. So to quickly demonstrate the purpose of Curve Editor, I'll select the whole character, I'll go back into the Curve Editor, I'll select all my points, and then I'll set it to either smooth or auto. So if I set it to smooth, basically this is usually how I start off working with the character. You can see that in the middle of the poses you get sliding of the feet through the ground. So let's quickly revert back to what we had earlier. As an example, let's take his left leg. We have the hip bone, we have the knee, and we have the ankle. So from 36 to 42. So if this leg was set to auto smooth, then in the middle of those two poses, the leg would slide through. But to prevent that, we open up Curve Editor, zoom in a little bit. Upon selecting the tangent and pressing Set Tangent to Spline, now we have the spline divided into two parts. By pressing Controller and selecting one of the parts of the tangent, now we can start playing around with the curve. I'm basically starting off at the hip bone. See how at that particular frame, which is the frame 40, now we have manual control over the positioning of the hip bone. Starting off at the hip, and then going down to the knee, and then working on the tangents there, and then going down the chain onto the ankle, you're able to offset the leg to such a degree in which the leg no longer goes through the ground plane in between frames. So if we go back a couple times and redo the adjustments that I've made, you can see that you can get a clean, I guess it's very difficult to get it to match it perfectly, but when you have a reference point, if you put a ground plane in, and this line will now represent a ground plane, you know that you can visually kind of start adjusting your limbs to work fairly well with the ground plane and prevent the legs sliding, the feet sliding through the ground. But then if we start looking at the character as a 3/4 down, the sliding of the feet isn't noticeable. Also, the big part of second pass is adding the secondary movements. So as you can see, the armor pieces, the tail, the little feathers, even the straw, the helmet, etc., etc. Start moving with the character. Depending on where you are with your animations, you might want to stop right here. Or you might want to offset the symmetry a bit, thus adding character to the cycle. The complexity of animations is really dependent on, as mentioned earlier, to the responsiveness that you'd want to get out from your character's actions, thus also dependent on the game's genre. The extremeness of poses for multiple characters should be the same, so it doesn't feel like one character can push further than the other. Make it feel like they're on the same playing field. A couple of notes about importing into Unreal Engine 4. Unreal Engine accepts one root bone, so if you're working with 3 controllers, combine them into one. Unreal Engine 4 also disregards any bone with 0 weighting on it. For this project, I played a little bit around with the shader. The goal in this step is to make the character look less plastic and to represent the materials better. So leather should look more like leather, metals more like metals, skin more like skin. It's a bad practice to load in multiple masks unless they're hidden away in alpha channels. But I didn't quite follow that rule, so the next time I do something like this, I'll definitely try combining all the masks into as little files as possible. To create camera movements and to set up the motion of the character, I used the newly implemented video sequencer in Unreal 4. It's extremely versatile and easy to use. I hope this made you think of some new ideas of how to approach your character creation. Thank you for watching.